Just to give a bit of context about NEWFORUM, we've been essentially building up a community around collective research. We started out as a podcast, and we've been progressively working towards a lot of community-based forums. And it's a chance for people to come together virtually. We do some in real life as well, just to really get into more community-driven conversations about everything that's happening in Web3. We like to keep it very human-centered and to know the people behind the projects and what is the story and the mission that is driving everybody and what the values are. We've had a lot of connection with Gitcoin, and we work closely with trying to support the public's good mission in Web3. So we're very connected in this whole community and are supporting the Gitcoin beta round and all the projects that are in it. A little bit of context again for people who will be watching this. This is essentially something that is building on many of the community efforts around the Gitcoin beta. There's an amazing project for the Gitcoin radio as well. I don't know how many people here have been participating in that, sort of giving an opportunity and a platform for the projects to present themselves. And here we're trying to make more of a video-driven time capsule so that we can actually look back at this the next time and see this as kind of a historical moment of the Gitcoin beta and everything that the team and the community have worked so hard on to get to this point. It's a really different phase of Gitcoin itself, and there are so many amazing rounds. The Metacrisis round has also come out of this one, which is super interesting. I'd love to know if there's different projects here participating in that.
Let's start with Crowdnews. Yeah, if you could just introduce yourself briefly, your team and what your project is working on in a few minutes.
I'm happy to. Iman, I'm calling in from Lisbon. Maz also just joined, so also a co-steward, co-founder. So excited to share more with this community. As Crowdnews, we're really the co-creation platform to enable creators to work together with brands, producers, manufacturers across the fashion supply chain. And the idea here really is to support on the coordination infrastructure where a creator that might be a 3D designer, a pattern maker, can then work together with brands or manufacturers to scale up their creations and brand. And really what it comes down to is a little bit of IP management where creators are able to protect the designs they create to avoid IP appropriation from bigger brands. And then at the same time, being able to have the suppliers and manufacturers on chain kind of show their proof of impact, whether that might be using zero waste materials, using kind of renewable energy in the manufacturing process, and also at some point as we scale up the data and measurements of things like working conditions and chemicals used in the fashion production process. Hopefully we can help enable the grassroots coordination of multiplayer co-creation around fashion and then scale that up to any digi-physical product that requires multiple people to contribute their IP and share some of the upside of the products they create.
Incredible. And just so one fast question that probably everyone will get is what led you to go on Gitcoin? What led you to participate to this round?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually joined Gitcoin in GR15 as we were first kicking off the project and doing a few pilots around the first fashion drops, fashion collectibles that we're doing. And really the idea came from us all being somewhat creative and trying to do something in the world, whether it's my background in energy, where I was working with universities and startups to help commercialize IP around climate technologies so that you can actually create some kind of open source IP collaboration around it, and realize it's very similar in the fashion supply chain. And maybe I'll let Maz share her perspective of how she sees this coming out of her vision.
Hi, my background was in sustainable fashion about 10 years ago. And to my surprise, things have not changed that much. But the appetite for consumers to buy more consciously and sustainably has grown. But saying that, there's a lot more increased access to microfactories and sustainable materials coming into the market. So we just want to basically be the kind of connector and multi-sided marketplace that brings designers access to sustainable materials and sustainable practices. And yeah, on-chain stuff enables, or on-chain features enables a lot of transparency in the fashions or any supply chain's footprint. And so it brings much more visibility to those things. I think Gitcoin, naturally, I think we've been in the ecosystem for a pretty long time. We've been building for over a year and been kind of in Web3 for nearly 2 years. So Gitcoin is obviously the place to go when it comes to public goods and funding stuff like this. So yeah, that's why we're here.
This is amazing. And what kind of engagement have you had previously? What is the sort of level of your project at large, and what is the scope of your project proposal right now in the beta round?
Project at large, we're pretty much, basically we've been building out a backend infrastructure that allows creators to do collaborative drops on our marketplace. So we've basically been building out the backend and the front end. The backend is basically a smart contract infrastructure with some off-chain things like database features and things. But essentially that is to enable these primitives that we're building out, and the features is to kind of make that tech stack or that work stack much easier for creators and manufacturers to do drops together and be more transparent. And then the front end is enabling that kind of through a marketplace approach. So we'll be pretty much going live with our first drop in the next month or so. And so that's on the product side. I don't know, Iman, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I think the other side of the question was more around how the community is growing. And we look at this just simply as a multi-sided marketplace. We have a network of creators that we meet with and come up with interesting fashion collectible ideas that will match communities and resonate with them in terms of values, and really trying to get that made to order philosophy so that we don't have the waste associated with fast fashion. And then on the other side, obviously, we have a team of contributors. So Maz and myself are full-time. And then we have a team of somewhere between 6 to 10 part-time contributors that right now are basically investing their heartbeats, as we are bootstrapped for the most part. And then a wider community of friends and the super vans that are helping us along the way.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I don't know if someone has a question or maybe later, and then we'll keep going on the order. Unless there's one last thing that you wanted to add, Iman or Maze.
I'm a big fan of NEWFORUM, actually. So I've been following you guys for a long time, and I just want to say that. And I really like Sofiane as well. I've been speaking to him for quite a lot. Maybe we would do a drop together. That would be pretty fun. But on the Gitcoin front and just on the public goods front, yeah, like we're coming into this with a ton of years of experience in supply chains and also a bunch of other areas like in startups, VC, and all that kind of stuff. And really the things that Web3 can enable is actually a lot of the missing pieces that Web2 was obviously missing and the industry has been missing for a really long time. So I think we're actually on the right track finally, I think holistically, to be utilizing some interesting mechanisms to actually make certain things much better environmentally. And that comes directly into how we, consume products and how things are produced. So we're taking that very seriously. And so we think, hopefully this kind of works towards that future that we want to build.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. That's awesome to hear. And yeah, NEWFORUM's always had humble beginnings with a very genuine mission. So happy to hear that we've been part of it since the beginning.
We'll keep going with the order. It's probably the easiest. Once again, just chill vibes. Ron is next with Spirit DAO for the Metacrisis round. So Ron, if you want to introduce yourself or team members, and same kind of questions of, what is the project about and how did you start interacting with Gitcoin?
Yeah, I deeply appreciate the opportunity to connect. So my name is Ron Rivers. I'm the author of a nonfiction book called Self-Actualization in the Age of Crisis and a co-founding member of Spirit DAO. My other co-founders and myself professionally have a history in the nonprofit, philanthropic, and then also tech sector. So it's kind of a nice blend of that. And what we are working towards, Self-Actualization in the Age of Crisis, as a book, develops new frameworks of meaning and value informed by cosmology and physics. So the central argument is that we cannot, when we think about the metacrisis, which is our specific focus, if we're only willing to kind of build new solutions within the existing institutions of thought, value, meaning, our argument is that's not enough. We kind of need to reframe and in many ways free the present from the influence of the past. So the book kind of dives deep into cosmology, it creates new core values. It binds spiritual renaissance to systemic reformation, which I argue is a necessary component. So Spirit DAO is kind of a member collective that's formed around the book. It's been out for about 6 months. We have about 40 members in the community. We're pre-launch in the formal DAO. But essentially consensus among the community is that to kind of further spread this message, the book is in itself a barrier to entry. And what I mean by that is it's 500 pages, right? So we're kind of, our grant is to create a graphic novel, about 50 pages. We've partnered with some really brilliant artists to kind of make it come forth, to kind of spread these kind of pluralistic values and visions of humanity and kind of collaboration in the nature of being, frankly, as a means of kind of transcending the metacrisis as kind of the foundational approach.
I'm so sorry, Ron, to interrupt you. Could you briefly give a brief definition of metacrisis?
No, absolutely. I appreciate you kind of interjecting. So essentially, the metacrisis can be briefly defined as the kind of summary of all the various crises surrounding us in the various different directions. I think what the metacrisis ultimately refers to is that it's kind of like a paradox. Right? We live in the best time ever to be alive in the immediate present, but at the same time, there's a number of existential threats that surround us in a variety of directions. So, everything from what's popular now, right? It's kind of became popular post-publication, but the AI, the AI threat, the crisis of extinction. We talk about death dogmas, doubt, desire, et cetera, in the book. So it's the kind of sum of all these various challenges, also commonly referred to as Moloch, right? Our coordination failures. I think where Spirit DAO differs from a lot of the popular metacrisis philosophy is that whereas many would argue that coordination is kind of the root cause, the root failure point, we would argue it goes deeper. It's the individual meaning and value that the individual embodies, which then inform the intent and kind of frameworks that they interact with others. So if we embrace, for example, philosophies of spirituality that are dominion-based, then that kind of bleeds into our view of the world and kind of how we do that. So I'm going to actually post real quick, just for everyone in the chat, so some links to kind of highlight. If you're interested in checking out the text or the grant or anything like that, the book is free. I should mention that. So just to kind of clarify, the book is a living document. So upon our formal launch of the DAO, all legal rights will be signed over to it. We're also incorporating as a 501c3 nonprofit. So there's no opportunity for me to personally profit from the extension of the book. It was written with the intention of being a community document, a living document that transforms over time, because central to our core argument is that we live in a world of systems that reinforce kind of static views of the world, but nothing about the history of the universe is static. Everything has always been changing. So in terms of cosmology and physics, so that's kind of our efforts. I'll pause for any questions or anything like that, but I do want to respect everyone else's time. I really do appreciate the opportunity to share. And you can read the book at singletruth.org. Our grants are just grants.spiritdao.org. And I'm going to post this in the chat briefly if anyone is interested, but happy to field any questions, or if you guys want to dive deeper into anything. Our core mission, once we publish this, is we're doing a lot of grassroots nonprofit work. So local organizing, local community. Typically, our target areas at first are typically historically marginalized communities, where myself and the other co-founders have a lot of experience professionally within the nonprofit space. And we think it's a real great way to kind of transition not only skill building, but value guidance, as part of that, and towards a more pluralistic view of the world.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm just checking out now the link on your project grants on Gitcoin. So it looks really interesting, the different milestones. You have 5 milestones that you're aiming for, right, for this project right now. To what extent do you need extra support once, you've gone through this round? Are you looking for more people to be engaged? Are you still looking for more artists or anything like that to really get this off the ground?
A great question. Thank you for asking. For the most part, I think operationally we're pretty complete. Milestone 1, which is the revised draft of the white paper, is complete. The artist is already locked in. We already have that partnership. So really at this point, it's just capital and then the opportunity to kind of obviously build it and then spread it. So the project's pretty much on its way. We already have the white paper and the revisions, the graphic novel complete. We already have the artist partnership. Essentially, at this point, it's just we're waiting for the capital. After that, it'll be the printing, the kind of paste it up, and then distribution, which will happen at a lot of Web3 conferences where we found a lot of resonance. And again, our local nonprofit work that we're really focused on.
As a person who's built and been a part of founding teams of 3 educational institutions in my community here in New Orleans, Louisiana, what I know to be true is that this digital community and the ability to leverage digital community is quite revolutionary. to be able to have a team that is growing and existing and collaborating outside of the boundaries and the local terrain has really enabled and expanded my perspective on what it looks like to get the work done and to share the load with people. So that's sort of my interest in, one of my interests in Web3. I came into Web3 about a year and a half ago, and I was first introduced to Gitcoin through someone reaching out to me and having an interest was a part of your organization, and then started been building in that space for the last year and a half, not exclusively, but primarily. And along the way, as a musician, I closed out a fellowship. And the fellowship was a national fellowship that was endowed to me on the basis of my social practice merit here in New Orleans. And so I was sort of thinking about how to redefine my relationship with community work and labor, and came upon Web3 and started to build in that space. At the end of the year, I communicated that I wanted to build right relationship with 100 true and pure collectors of my music, that's something that I was really interested in. That to me really resonated with the reality of my emotional capacity. My primary work, is that I'm a mother of two. So I have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. So I thought, how can I build and genuinely, dynamically, intentionally, and authentically with people, but to my capacity, right? So I set out to form a relationship with 100 true and pure real collectors. So by the end of the year, I had 112. And along that journey in showing up in music NFTs, collecting, listening to music, and listening to the stories behind the music, what I discovered is there were more people like me, right, who were creating projects and aligning them with social practice. And while releasing music, these artists were also teaching us what they care about. So I decided to ask my core group of collectors what they care about, right? More candidly, and thought, okay, what if I could leverage this digital community to be a part of social impact projects with me all across the world? What would that look like? In music NFTs and in Web3 in large, we do often see projects that have a social impact piece and partnerships with nonprofits, et cetera, on chain. But what I don't see a lot of, and what for the people, one of the central components of how we plan to structure and operate our project is to actually onboard the change makers and the thought leaders and the educators and the grassroots organizers that do the work IRL into our ecosystem, because they already have the experience, they have the mindset, and I think they share the ethos. They just don't know about Web3. And so I thought, okay, what if we could build a music marketplace that allowed music lovers to purchase or collect the music that they enjoy, and also support the communities that those artists care about, right? So across the year and a half, I've seen this done in a very informal, formal, but not on-chain way. That is to say, it's time for us to start writing in those other organizations into the contracts, right? And actually onboarding them into our ecosystem. We have on-chain revenue splits. Blockchain tech is largely transparent. The nonprofit sector, and this is in my experience and research shows as well, one of the hugest problems that they face is that everybody's competing for the same grants, for the same monies, and they usually spend the year trying to prove why they deserve the money instead of focusing on the work that the money would grant them, the access to complete effectively. And or they spend a lot of their operational budget producing large galas that oftentimes include musicians and include artists, right? Trying to create an experience that inspires and motivates people to give to their organizations. Right now in the city, in New Orleans, there's something called Give NOLA Day, and it's just wrapping up. But every single nonprofit in the city is trying to get, funds on Give NOLA Day. So
it's very interesting. Like the concept of the first music marketplace for good. Like you usually hear music marketplace even with regards to Web 2 or Web 3, but for good is definitely
What are the things that you feel like would help the most with this round, and like what do you think is missing kind of in this music Web3 music space? Because I think it's I'm really interested in it as well, and I think a lot of people are. But what do you think is like would your community need the most for the round?
Yeah, so number one, we need contributions. We were approved in a reapproval because the Gitcoin organization had a hard time verifying my identity, but I am a real person and I'm grateful. So two nights ago, I was approved. The application's approved. So we've had very little time to really share our project. So we have 6 days left and we're hoping to get the funds that we need to pay a dev. I want to share with y'all that I tried to learn Solidity for 3 weeks. While it was an ambitious feat on my part, what I became aware of is the intensive work that it takes for engineers to really do this blockchain thing. I know we hear build, go, but also it's tough work to do it. And it gave me an appreciation for that. So what we're hoping for is the funds to be able to hire a developer, an engineer on the front end to start to do some of what we would call like our visioning of what this looks like and the early stage planning to have a realistic viewpoint from a financial standpoint of what it would take to build this marketplace out. Now we do plan on, we've been very inspired by 2 open source creator tools. There's a open source tools from SoundXYZ, which is a current music marketplace, as well as Zora. And, those are open source tools. So I've been told in my advising with folks that it makes it somewhat easier, but it's still, the work to be done to make it be something that our tagline is good music, good causes, sounds good. Like it should be when you go to the grocery store and they're like, hey, you want to add on $1 for Red Cross? And this is no shade to anyone who works with the Red Cross. But there are a lot of major NGOs, and I say this living on the forefront, on ground zero of climate crisis and climate change here in New Orleans, Louisiana, along the Gulf Coast. And the truth is that the people who get the work done are the grassroots organizers in my community who understand what mutual aid looks like. And we think that blockchain technology is mutual aid 10.0. And for us, it looks like making it not be an afterthought like how you do it at the grocery store, but an on-chain, at the protocol level, immediate, transparent transaction that takes place. And this allows us to write organizations and grassroots organizers into the contracts, but also build the stories that actually build bridges. And we have some token mechanics that will allow folks who support the marketplace and support the artists to unlock some new experiences like building, mutual aid 10.0, exactly. So access to more music content, access to more experiences, but also access to, in ways that are mutually respectful and consensual, the communities that they're impacting. Because what happens is that we have a lot of blind philanthropy that doesn't really help put people's fingers on the pulse of the communities that they're impacting.
Yeah.
And so that's how we actually build trust. Right. And I think why people go to the larger NGOs is because they have a reputation and they hear names like Boys and Club Association of America. And it sounds good because it sounds like something we know and we trust and it's familiar. But what we also have to do is start allowing the communities that are on the ground to curate the causes who are most impacted by the issues themselves. And that's something that For the People XYZ will do. We'll have a team of artists that'll be curating the causes, curating the issues. Reveal, which is an on-chain splits protocol, their team has agreed to come on board and support us with the Web3 education component so that those organizers are educated on what the splits protocol is, et cetera, so we're not carrying the brunt of that load. So this round for us is really about the money to hire a dev. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your passion. And music for good cannot be a bad thing. It has to be a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It has to evolve, right? Like gone are the days or the huge charity concerts that we see, the Paul Simons and the Michael Jacksons throwing these huge concerts, and we were all inspired by that moment, but we haven't seen anything like this. And I think it's super simple. It's actually super intuitive, and I'm really excited to enrich our ecosystem with folks who get it.
Thank you so much. Following the ordered chat, I see Chris from Cryptocuriosis. So if you would like same thing, introduction and how you got to learn more about Gitcoin. And thank you so much again, Chan.
Thanks, everybody.
Hi, everyone. I am Chris. I am one of the founders from Cryptocuriosis. And well, first of all, it's our first time in the round. I think some of you as well. So we're pretty excited. By the way, I am Peruvian, so yes, you may hear some accent. We actually got interested in this Gitcoin round because our friends they were the ones that encouraged us. They were like, because of the impact that we're doing, the things that we're doing, the actions that I'm gonna tell you about what is Cryptocuriosis, they were like, you should do this, and not just one or two people. They were like, when you actually say we need to, because if not just a couple of people are saying it, when we have to. So that's why we applied. And well, now let me tell you a little bit about Cryptocuriosis, which is a women community, and that it's focused on speaking Spanish-speaking women, because as you can see, more information there's always in English, and there we feel like we need more Latinas. Well, we also have women from Spanish, so that's why Spanish-speaking women. And well, basically what we're doing, and since this project started, which was 9 months ago, we've been given resources and tools for women, to first of all, to inspire them, to let them know that this is a place for everyone, and that they also could participate in here. They could also learn, build. That's what we want. We want more women builders. We want women hacking, coding. I mean, this was a big problem here in our country. I am from Peru, but we focus on Latam. Basically, we do webinars, we do Twitter spaces talking about specific topics that inspire women, and we every space that we have, it's a certain field that it's hosted by our guests are always women, because what we want is to see them a representation. Just a couple of days ago, we were in a Twitter space, and basically there were only projects for, they were just men. And that was funny because yesterday we host a Twitter space in the Cryptocuriosis Twitter account, just with women-led projects, and there were many Gitcoin projects that are led by women. But for some reason, when there is just a general Twitter space about Gitcoin, most of the speakers are always men. So we want to kind of close the gap, because we feel there are women. It's just that we need more representation, more visualization. I don't know, but there is something out there. So what we want to do, it's now host in real life events, because there is a big impact in the difference when you are doing an event virtual, and then when you're doing on a in real life event. Basically, the fact that you can see the person, and if it's your first event, because our target, it's that our audience are women that are started learning, that are curious. They don't know much, but they're curious to learn, or they don't know anything, but they want to know. Sometimes it's if you're in a virtual event, it's you might not ask questions even when you have doubts, and you have no connections, because there's something going on when you, at least here in Latin America, it's that. It's you need to, you trust people when you see them. It's kind of like that. So we've already been hosting 5 events in here, but we want not only in Lima, we want also outside of Lima, because a big issue is that every crypto event in Peru, it's in Lima. So there are, of course, more places in our country, and so we want to go to those places. We already have this kind of like partnerships with universities. So we already have it. We just need, like this kind of like money incentives, to do it. So we're doing that. And also to put in some context, last year I got a scholarship to attend to a really big event, which was DevCon. And that was for me like a big change of mindset. For real, I think like it kind of like changed the perspective that I have, and also inspire me. Like the women that I met there, and right now like we work with them, and also like have a lot of ideas that we are also kind of like putting in our work, like how we can reach more women, or So that is basically what we want. We want to give these kind of opportunities for women, because sometimes the biggest issue is money. I don't know if you know, probably you do, about the economic crisis that Latin America. I think like there are many countries in here. We have ambassadors in Venezuela, in Argentina, in Peru, of course, in Mexico. And so what we want to do is to hold events that we have with our ambassadors. And sometimes, of course, for them, because of the situation that we live in and the economic problems, the political problems, well, it's really hard. So this is, of course, a way of like earning money, because, oh my gosh, the situation, we when we talked about them, is like, today, I don't know, the currency, it's worth this, and tomorrow you don't know. And it's like, and it's a big issue. That's why we also focus a lot on mental health. I think we all that are here and that are in this ecosystem, we cannot deny that, like, the pressure, because crypto is like, it's not 24/7. I would say like 25/8.
Yeah, I just had a question for you, Chris.
Oh yeah.
How do you inspire these women that don't know about crypto, about blockchain, about public goods? Like, what is your approach to inspire them, like the same way you got inspired, like a DevCon or Pagoda?
Well, the first one, it would be like there is like a solution to this big issue, that it's the devaluation of currency, the devaluation of money. That actually, that was like, for me, that was the reason that I am here. Like, there was a specific month that was like NEWFORUM, which is the currency that that we live in, that we use. It was worth like nothing. So it was like a way to solve up my problem. So that is one of the issues. I think that for women, like the one of the most biggest issues, it's first of all, like, they don't own their money. They don't even own their money. So it's like education, like with money, like with currency, even with budget. It's starting with budget. And the fact that you can tell them there is a solution for this, and not just crypto, but also like in this ecosystem, like even building, and like we want what we want is that they find kind of like a place where they can be remunerated. They could get paid for what they do. Actually, in our community, of course, we have women that are very active, and they write articles, and they also host Twitter spaces, and well, many things. They are in charge of the marketing and a lot of areas. So with this, also, we want to give them like a bounty, because they're earning experience. That of course, it's important, but we value their time as well. So it's, of course, it will be like a really good way to kind of like starting, in this ecosystem, because once you are also like kind of like building or writing or doing something, you are learning. That's how I got into here. Like I would the same, right? I would post, and little by little, you gain more knowledge, you gain more experience.
My name is Keith Camino. I'm the president of a charity called Lifespan.io that raises funds and awareness for research aimed at extending healthy human lifespan and defeating age-related disease. And we have actually two projects in the round. But before I get into that, I just want to explain the confluence there, in case some of you are wondering, what does this have to do with blockchain technology? And something that you might not know is that going all the way back to sort of the birth of cryptocurrency and blockchain, back to pioneers like Hal Finney, all the way through the pioneers of the present, like Vitalik Buterin, Juan Benet, people like that, there's been a passionate interest in this field because they recognize that if you're really after, real effective altruism, it makes much more sense to treat the roots of the problem. So in this case for health, think of it like treating the trunk of a tree versus a branch of a branch. So in this case, let's say treating genetic instability instead of end-stage cancer, right? In addition to that, I also spearhead some projects at R&D and at Disney and Invented Technologies, although I can't talk about that too much. But to go to the grants, if I can share my screen. Great. Okay. So the first grant that we have, as you can see here, is called Lifespan.io meets Web3, crowdsourced clinical trials, inverse quadratic funding, and you. And what this project is dedicated to is basically we've been inventing new types of dynamic NFTs and new types of quadratic funding mechanisms. You can see on the grant here, if you go later, the viewers, you can see there's a lot of videos here that you can click where we walk through this. So as an example, one of them that there's some excitement in the Gitcoin community around is this idea of dynamic NFTs for good, what we're calling proof of philanthropy. So you could think of that as a dynamic, like scaling NFT that tracks on-chain philanthropic giving. And, its aesthetics and its perks will scale up and down based on, whether that is upkept. So it can create this kind of powerful, timely drive to do philanthropic good. And then one of the offshoots of this is to pair this exciting mechanism to drive into regenerative funding pools like crypto philanthropy endowments that reinvest in themselves in a variety of ways, and then can, based on votes, perhaps from those NFT holders, decide which projects that funding will go to. So that's dynamic NFTs. There's also, I've been working on as part of this grant with some of the Gitcoin team members like Scott and Umar and others, variations of quadratic funding that can create like really powerful social signals. So as I'm sure most of us are familiar with, quadratic funding is very good in a case where you have a lot of projects and you're trying to create like signal to noise and have the cream rise to the top. But what the existing forms of quadratic funding don't necessarily serve is if there's one project that the entire community already has consensus on, but requires like $100 million. So how do you get that through? So if you kind of invert the existing kind of model by basically having the matching pool scale from a pool of very committed large matchers based on crowd involvement. So, if 100,000 of you all can raise $1 million, we'll match it with 10 million. If 1 million of you can raise $10 million, we'll match it with 100 million. And at our charity, we have a YouTube channel with over 3 million subscribers called Life Noggin, and the ability to work with, some of the top content creators. So if we're able to structure mechanisms like this, and we have a really exciting project, then we can go out to the public and literally hit like hundreds of millions of people and say, hey, here's this really important thing. All you got to do is donate $1 via the inverse quadratic funding, and you get to stand shoulder to shoulder with these heroes and, cure cancer or whatever we're trying to do. And the last aspect of this grant here is a variation on the dynamic NFTs that I've been calling bio-avatars, which is basically doing the same kind of dynamic NFT scaling ability, but based on limited privacy-preserving biometric data. Think of it like, imagine if you were playing a game like Axie Infinity, where your Axie, your character, will become stronger and more competitive if you've slept well, if you're doing your push-ups, right? So you're creating these kind of passive incentive models to have people take care of their health, which is something of passionate interest to me. And we're currently, some of the funding would be used for here is we're currently in talks right now with some major developers on both the Arbitrum and the Polygon networks of seeing if we can make an amazing game based on the fable of the Dragon Tyrant, which is a story that I know Vitalik Buterin loves. He has it on his Twitter profile. And it's basically a metaphor for aging. Societies like sacrificing 100,000 people every day to this dragon. And some people think the dragon is good, or should we fight the dragon? So imagine a massive game like this called Dragon Tyrant. That's like a roguelike dungeon crawler, where through the operations of the game, while everyone is trying to defeat the Dragon Tyrant in the game, it's raising money into a philanthropic pool where some of the money will be reflected.
So gamifying kind of public goods. I think it's one of the big questions that nobody has a perfect answer to. It's like, how do you transform VGens into regens? How do you get the space? So it's incredible seeing, all these different projects, be it fashion, music, what you're building, just show different aspects or different solutions.
Absolutely. And what's nice about this particular version of it is you also have like a confluence of the narrative. Like in the game, you're trying to defeat the dragon tyrant, but your real world actions as a consequence are supporting the charities that are trying to defeat the dragon tyrant of age-related disease in real life. So all that is the first grant. And then I'll be quick on the second grant. Something that we're really, really excited about is we're trying to organize and building projects to lead into the first ever truly decentralized clinical trial, and in this case for non-drug interventions for Alzheimer's disease. So this grant here is called Stop Alzheimer's with Light and Sound. If you haven't heard of this before, it might sound really fantastical, but you can trust me and you can see references in the grant that this is based on solid science that basically shows compelling results that, at least in mice, literally flickering lights and sounds of certain frequencies and certain modalities can potentially reverse the symptoms of dementia. And for various reasons, this hasn't really translated to humans, and there's some, more work that needs to be done to really kind of harden this capability. But as you can see, if there's any promise to this at all, there could potentially be a therapy here that could be maybe deployable from a laptop, where imagine a clinical trial where hundreds of thousands of people are having a potential preventative care for Alzheimer's disease administered them through their laptop while contributing data back through that laptop and maybe earning some cryptocurrency for that work, which is a complete radical flip of the current healthcare system or the current medical research system, where, as an example for Alzheimer's here, over $1 trillion has been spent in U.S. taxpayer dollars alone over 30 years for drug trials that have repeatedly failed with no results. So you can imagine what a shock it would be to the existing clinical trial system if a decentralized group of regular people on the internet can demonstrate any remediation of dementia. And as part of my capacity at the charity of Lifespan.io, I also interact with people in various agencies, NIH, NIA, ARPA, etc. And what I can say is that I'm very excited that there seems to be a lot of interest in this. It's not like, you should leave it up to the clinicians. It's more like, no, you have to do this, because if you can demonstrate a successful model, then we can update our systems, right? So I'm really optimistic that a project like this, if successful, could really catalyze a massive shift towards decentralized science much faster than we all might think. So the last point that I'll make there, which is more like an emotional, passion plea, because we need funding. This work is not commensurately funded for the amount of good it will do for the world. Just as one example, half the people in the world are going to die with some level of cognitive diminishment. So no matter what you care about, whatever existential risk you care about, if we solve this issue, we literally give every scientist on the planet 5 more healthy years to work on whatever that problem that you think is more important, right? And just one last emotional plea. Every second someone dies of age-related disease, that means that if you can help us in any way via the Gitcoin grants or getting involved or funding in other ways or anything, even literally just talking to somebody across the dinner table and planting that seed in their mind, if you move the fruition of these technologies up by even 1 second, you will be responsible for saving someone's life. So that's my call to action to you all. Happy to take any questions. I know I just fire hosed you.
Thank you so much, Keith. It's really inspiring. It's again one of the topics where you really want to do a deep dive and see all the potential, right? All you need is that one really strong use case. You raise the funds, and everyone's like, oh, wait a second, there's just a new way of doing things. Thank you so much, Keith. If nobody else has a question, we can go with Isla and Delvos. Same thing, introduction, product. Thank you again, Keith. Go for it.
Hi everyone, I'm Isla. I'm here in Zuzalu in Montenegro. So Victoria and I are both here today from the Delvos project. I will give you a bit of a background on how we came about, and then Victoria will talk a little bit more about where we're headed. So I've been working the past 3 years almost full-time on a project to decentralize venture capital and make it more diverse and inclusive. And we've been working extremely hard. We think that the ideas that we had there are really world-leading. And then we were invited to World Economic Forum. And in the same email they invited us, they said, but it will be $50,000, I think, US to participate. And that really sort of created a big aha moment in terms of, we always knew that the World Economic Forum was elitist in some way, but we had at least the impression that they were doing a good job of, let's say, potentially curating
the best ideas and the most important ideas for the future of economy and society and humanity to be to be in this place, speaking to these people who have so much power and influence over what happens to us. And we realized in that moment, like, actually, it's all being curated based on who can pay to be there. And that led us to kind of say, like, this needs to be DAOified. We need a space to reach these people, leading countries, leading NGOs, leading philanthropists, and to teach them about the value of DAOs and the value and the potential impact of Web3, and to curate that democratically and not just based on who can pay to be there or sponsor the event. So we're a DAO of DAOs, or we're building a DAO of DAOs, and it will be really, truly decentralized. Up until now, we've probably spent 10 to 20,000 of our own funds just to set things up to run our first event in Davos in 2023 at the beginning. It was a very small event, but we made it happen. We were given some space for free, and we brought people there, and we had a great event. And we've also had an event in Tel Aviv and an event in Denver, smaller events, just getting the word out there. And yeah, the vision really is to have this large DAO eventually completely independently, not needing the World Economic Forum to reach this audience. But at the moment, it's a great place to reach that audience and reach those impactful people. But we need a way of getting more diverse voices there. And so that's what we're doing with this, with Delvos. And I'll let Victoria maybe take it from there. Just a little bit of my background. Started out my career in venture capital, went into banking, had a massive burnout and depression. And I've now been 3 years full-time DAO and Web3, and just genuinely believe in this space with every part of my heart. I studied economics, macroeconomics, and it's taken a long time to find the point in my life where I actually believe that we have the potential solutions to make capitalism and human experience work somewhat hand in hand.
Yeah, maybe I take over there. So I'm Victoria. Probably for context, the World Economic Forum is in a town called Davos, and we felt like that what we are trying to do is not only DAOify this meeting place of where you try and talk about impact on the economy in general, but also try to push the big great ideas out. And so far, a lot has happened in the place. And so we felt like, well, putting DAO and voices, Spanish, together would also bring some more diversity. And we have this January, actually, with tremendous amount of luck and very, very great people from the Web3 ecosystem have managed somehow to be there for half a day. However, it was all self-funded from the people themselves, so it's also quite expensive to get there. And what we were trying with this Gitcoin round to, first of all, raise funds so that we'll be definitely able to extend 5 scholarships to people who maybe it's not so easy to get to Switzerland and stay there for a week, but really, can also participate, and also to grow the event out from like an afternoon to something that has more visibility and more impact in the place itself. To my background, to keep it brief, so I also I have studied economics, but I come from like economic policy background. I have worked in government with government a lot on innovation policy and tech policy. I've left government when I got super disillusioned because people are so set up in managing their space and managing their power and not thinking anymore of like how we can push forward. And that's what got me into the Web3 space.
So in terms of like the values of a DAO compared to like Davos as we know it, how do you see it evolving in the years to come? This could be an hour question, but what's your answer?
It's an hour question, so I'm really curious. I think the evolution will be that we somehow get more agile in the sense of also of how we, or at least for Davos, right? It's like a meeting place of people and DAOs coming together to push ideas forward. And I think there also will have to be quite a fluid, agile governance to itself, so that not only the DAOs and members that are joining now will keep their rights, but that we can iterate it year by year, session by session. Not sure how that will work, but that would be a very moonshot vision.
for myself trying to design it. As we're super early, we have not yet believed that we will actually manage to bring Delvos 2023 together. So anybody who wants to chip in on trying to come up with something that will give access and will allow us, to promote voices in this space and bring them to Switzerland, but at the same time, think of designing the right mechanism to create an ecosystem that can always push the right ideas and how it can evolve year by year or iterate it, or some organizations reset it. That could be please come back and support and join and chip in. But maybe I has a thought to that,
No, that was
more the governance
fast answer, because it's definitely very hard to answer this. We'll go to the next project, the Gallery DAO.
So my name is Sean. I go by Origin Story. I am the founder of the Gallery DAO. We create disruptive XR experiences that champion diverse voices. We started in about April of last year when there was all of this DAO craze, join it, we're DAOs in the future, we're going to take over. And we were really passionate about that because I spent about 2 years in the space before that, or a year and a half, just learning and listening. Shout out to Natalie Crew, who was running late night meetings in Clubhouse explaining what NFTs were and blockchain. So felt really excited to join. But of course, that was this moment of everyone was like, DAOs are amazing. And they were like, no more DAOs right now. So we were in a private group of about 100, and we decided, well, you know what? We took the effort to get together, and we have some alignment, and we want to just try and see what happens. So we spent basically the year bootstrapping our little bit of grant help here and there. And the result has been our 3 main key activities now, which are Metaversité, which is a creative hackathon series that puts creators and developers together. The concept is that essentially we're trying to build the future, right? And we're talking a lot about the creator economy, but where the creator and the creators at the table helping to build these applications and making sure that they actually don't just end up with the end user as a product with essentially money taken away from the middle. And we see that all the time. So that was in August.
I don't want to interrupt you there, but when you were talking about creator economy, just a shout out to Meta Label, and they co-wrote after the creator economy, and it's a really interesting paper that actually discusses that creator economy is not necessarily the right term, and in fact we should talk about ecosystems. And there's 40 pages of interviews and articles, so it's a really great article for anyone that's interested in creators. So sorry for interrupting there.
No, it's okay. I would just, on that point, and I hope this doesn't come out of my 5 minutes, I would say it's interesting that we're always trying to find a new word to as if that's the challenge, right? We're like, no, it can't be DAOs, or it's Web3 is the problem, or it's because we call it NFTs, except for we're not actually looking through getting, the onboarding process is so manual. And that's something that we've learned. I spent probably 4 hours at the Metaversité in August onboarding one person, but that one person went to ETH Denver and won the hackathon. So it's in the span of 4 months, someone who was like, no, I can't, this makes no sense to me, why are we doing this, to understand it, so then be able to build a project shows the testament of it might not be the words, right? It might just be how we're approaching situations. And something we think about at the Gallery DAO is there's creator economy, but we're actually building also the curator economy, right? The minute that we have so much tech and accessibility of even AI, who are the people making the sort of calls on what is taste or what's right or what's not? And this is why, the traditional art world is so much backlash against NFTs. It's this is years of human understanding and existence and collective consciousness that allows someone to look at a painting and tell you that it's not blue, it's cerulean, or that this is inspired by X. And these are all very important as we build the future. So Metaversité, it's one of our key activities. It goes under our pillar of educate. We have 2 other pillars, curate and connect and experience. So our first project was Metaversité. And then the project that was kind of our wild card was I thought about developing an AI tool that was integrated into the Web3 social graph. So it started off as the name of Lens AI. It was just in the Lens protocol, but now we've changed it to artificial intelligence. I'm actually wearing a hoodie, I think. And the concept is, how can we provide a creative toolkit with niche actual workflows for professional creators, so that in this span of there's all of this AI in this tool, but it's okay, how do you actually use a real world use case? That tool now has 70,000 plus image generations, 6,500 active users, which, as you know, Lens is closed, so that's almost 5% of the entire ecosystem using the tool. And that's also been a public good. It was free to use, free to mint, all of these things for the last 6 months. And then our last project and key activity is the Salon de Refusé. It's our identity event. We've been trying to put this on since we started, and the concept is the retake on the Salon de Refusé, which is an art movement in Paris that happened where basically a lot of artists didn't get into the main show and they protested. And then the king gave them their own show, which has launched this entire movement that's been running for about 200 years. We believe that Web3 allows a lot of these new creators, new voices, especially from the global diaspora, right? When we talk about diversity, we don't just talk about the diversity of color, but the diversity of ideas, and how can we leverage those together so that we can better understand each other, create better collaboration, coordination, a lot of the things that come out of the Moloch principle as well. So those are our 3 key activities. We're really excited to be here, to be standing a year in with no real funding, and we're about to go officially on chain with our equity governance token called Brush. One of the reasons why we did Gitcoin this time is because, as you know, the goal is no CEOs, right, of DAOs. This is decentralized. But one of the things I learned is you have to have someone steering at the top before you let go. There have to be frameworks, right? So I've been really lucky to be able to build this and other things, and I'm excited to step away and just see what happens. And this is kind of a really amazing last opportunity to give the DAO and the new members coming in a little bit of funding to start, and we can really see what happens when we do try for some of these principles. So yeah, I mean, I think everyone here is amazing causes, so it's been really nice to listen, and I'll try to be mindful of time. But if you check out the Gallery DAO.io, the Gallery DAO on Twitter, there's a lot of information. Also the Gallery DAO on Lens. We also posted about in the Salon de Refusé concept how we're trying to also build a Web3 escape room. So you can see a little bit of that, about that, right? We're always thinking it's not that it's wrong, it's how are we actually approaching it, right? So what if everyone came to a Web3 escape room where there's a 0 knowledge proof bar, right? And then in that you have to solve things, and that's how you learn what a ZK role is.
I would come like definitely.
So
yeah, organize it, give us the day to time.
Well, yeah, we need the funds. It's one of those like big ideas that it's hard for people to understand until they see it, right? And so we're in it for the long haul, and that's one of those things we said, you know, we used to have a date. It used to be, it was going to be in NFT Paris, and then it was going to be ECC, and then it was going to be, you know, X, and like now we're like, maybe it'll be ECC this year, and like, no, it's date TBD, but here are the ideas, and we stand behind them, and we're excited to collaborate with anyone in many ways. And I'm also excited to see what the new energy brings into the DAO, because that's also the point, right? People can see what we got to do in a year and then kind of take that on to the next level. So thanks for having the space. I will stop.
Thanks so much. Next person is Alexander, first on the call for Autocracy. And thank you so much also for yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing us your vision. And hello, everyone from Montenegro. I'm Alexander Blank, the co-founder and the CEO of Autocracy. And I'm just here to explain what Autocracy is about. Well, Autocracy is actually huge and is not so easy to digest in a single day. That is why I'm offering you to join our Zili community and Twitter community, where you can explore it with us, all the potential it has. Well, the term itself, the term Autocracy itself stands for a very special distributed form of digital democracy, where the power of voice is derived from action. And that is pretty much the essence of what we're trying to build. I mean, we see that the Web3 has really good potential for generating public good, but we believe that the main issue of the public good generation process is public good distribution itself. We believe that the best way to distribute public goods is to provide communities, especially local communities, with the ability to participate in fair voting and decide by themselves how to allocate and how to distribute resources to fund the brightest initiatives that they themselves, communities, find meaningful, and of course to impact the most pressing social and environmental issues on the local scale, therefore providing a brighter tomorrow in a worldwide scale, let me say so. So we are aiming no less than to become the more valuable public good generator and distributor in Web3 space, and actually to revolutionize civic engagement and empower communities. We have spent last year actually calculating tokenomics, creating game mechanics, running feasibility studies, and researching the market actually right now. And all I can say is that the market is totally ready to adopt us right away. And basically that is why we're doing this. And thanks to our host for having such a great framework and networking to collaborate upon. And yep, we are happy to get listed on Gitcoin. And basically we search for support from Gitcoin right now because we are preparing our MVP, our web app, which is mostly a game-like social framework that uses the power of geo-related gaming to create a framework that extends in many ways the concept of quadratic funding. That was fine. So, sorry to interrupt, Alexander. You said, what did you say about gaming? What was it? Geo-related gaming. Yeah. So basically, Autocracy as a framework is a game-like framework, and the main asset and the main utility carrier of this game are those NFT lands. Those are NFT assets having real-world utilities that are bonded to real-world locations. And basically, this is the core, the concept of Autocracy. And actually, those land NFTs are the entities that all of the other players interact with. So basically, those who own it become landlords with a set of special abilities, not only with the right to collect tithe and profit from having it, not only be able to sell it on a secondary marketplace or so on, but to decide what spectra of events and what spectra of crowdfunding campaigns to be run related to this location. And I have many more to say actually, but you better check out our Gitcoin grant and just follow us in Twitter community. So we together collectively would get through understanding the basics of Autocracy, would concentrate on understanding its core mechanics and the ways it could transform the society we live in by providing better ways of distributing public good on a local scale, just like that. And to do so, we have extended the classic understanding of quadratic funding, which works pretty good actually. We can see it in Gitcoin and so many places like Sealer Fund and so on. But it has a lot of issues actually, not only being limited with a crypto native community in a single chain, but also limited with these measures to overcome Sybil and to become Sybil resistant and so on. And that is why we have built Autocracy to be Sybil resistant by design. Yeah. So we got a bright concepts of quadruple funding and quadruple voting, and we got a couple of papers to be published in scientific journals in this month, I believe so. And yep, feel free to support us on Gitcoin. That would help us to bring the MVP to the market as soon as in June this year. The first step would be this land NFT marketplace, actually, where people could acquire their favorite lands to spread their cultures, beliefs, and so on. So, yep, thanks for having me here. That's it, I guess. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, I would be happy to reply.
I mean, I think I need to do a deep dive and for sure look at the links.
Sure.
Shared in the video.
That's so easy to digest. That's what I'm saying.
Well, it is, but it is such an important topic that you can't, of course, like you need time to digest it. So I think it's for all the projects.
Yeah.
The best thing. Go on the links and explore. This is more meant as an intro, but I invite anyone watching this recording to really look at the links and really dive into the project. So thank you so much for
such introduction. The main thought of actually is that the main issue of public good generation lays not in the field of generating public goods, but in the field of distributing those. That's it.
No, that's a good. The recap. It's a recap for sure. Thanks so much. I don't know if Pinsei is still in the chat. I mean, that's the name of the project, so go for it. Introduction.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I have two projects in the Gitcoin grants. One is like the like Web3 educational portal, where just like my blog that I kind of like lead for like about 2 years since I've started the journey into Web3. And the key projects that got the most donation is PinSafe, which is a decentralized Pinterest on blockchain, and we are focusing on EVM compatible chains because it's so easy to just kind of change the name of the like RPCs and integrate a new chain. And the project focuses on like NFTs, on anonymity, and on decentralized identity. I just wanted to say like that I think like there was like a project that was looking for like developers, and like as a developer, I'm more than like open and like happy to collaborate on like if you're like if you need some platform of developers, I'm more than happy to contribute and collaborate like with your project. Yeah.
I think Paige, if you're still in the call, go for it. Introduction. How did you tell us more about the project and how you learned about Gitcoin?
Yeah, thanks for the time. I learned about Gitcoin through the ecosystem GR12. I think I was a little slow actually to learn about Gitcoin. So Frontier DAO is a decentralized science DAO, but we started it pretty early on. So late summer of 2021. And so at the time, Desai wasn't a term. I come from actually a government contracting background and emerging technology. So I and my co-founder, we weren't at all in the Ethereum or cryptocurrency ecosystem at all. So a little bit in the blockchain, but more for supply chain tooling. Anyway, yeah, that's just a little bit of a intro. I did finally though get approved for GR15 after applying a couple rounds. And that was pretty exciting too, because then GR15 was kind of like the first round where a bunch of Desai projects were in. So it was great. And it's been so fun, like the whole thing, come for the grant, stay for the community. That's definitely been my experience. It's just a really, really fun process. And
you mentioned a couple, sorry to interrupt, a couple communities. Like what are the ones that you started working with, like with regards to your project?
Within the Gitcoin ecosystem?
Within the Gitcoin, yeah. I don't know if you want to mention a few. I don't want to put you on the spot, so.
No. I really like Quadratic Friends. I think I'm in a bunch of different chats, but I think the Quadratic Friends one is just everyone's really supportive, and everyone's doing really great things. I think that was really what made it sticky for me, to be honest. Quadratic Friends, and then also last summer during ECC, I went to the Sustainable Blockchain Summit that was sponsored by Filecoin Foundation, and Owaki was there. Like a bunch of everybody from the regen community was there, and so that also made things much more tangible because I got to meet a bunch of people IRL. So these people weren't then just names only, right, or avatars only. They were real people, really, and very engaging people, really genuine, authentic people.
In terms of the funding, like what are the different milestones with regards to the project that you're really looking to accomplish this year?
So this is different from our previous grants because we actually do a lot in fusion energy and science. But what I found is that there are so many. So the book is Women of Desai, Refi, Resci, and DeFi. So it's basically a book highlighting. It's a reference. It's meant to be a reference book. And honestly, this actually grew out of Desai Boston last year when in September when it was kind of like the first big Desai conference, and a bunch of us noticed that up until like a day before the conference, there were no women on the panels, like not one. And so a bunch of us women in Desai kind of noticed that, and we were like, wait a minute, that doesn't quite look so good because manels aren't really tolerated in so many ecosystems these days, So so that's why I kind of, but then the organizers were like, hey, look, we reached out to a ton of women and they were all busy and none of them said yes to speak. So we realized there was a disconnect, right? And so I thought, well, let's do a book. Let's do a book where women are right there in the reference guide. It says, their name, what their affiliations are, what projects they're working on, how to get hold of them, what their main socials are, say on LinkedIn or Twitter. So just like basically a page, maximum 2 pages on each woman. And hey, thanks for sharing this. And nothing too high tech for this. We want the people to speak about their high tech abilities within the context of the book. But the book itself is very simple. I mean, one of the books that I've that has inspired me the most in Web3 is Green Pilled. So if I use that as
and the Gitcoin.
Yeah. It's a very inspiring book, and it's just a book, So sometimes I feel like in order to communicate some of the strongest ideas and thoughts, we can just be very, very direct and kind of stick with a comfort level. That's kind of basic. So, so the milestones, to answer your question, with this grant, what we're looking to do is achieve, say, 100 profiles. And some women are going to share, like some women will be refi and Desai, for example. But basically 100 profiles of women who are doing things in the space. And then, like maybe one paragraph about their project, and then, a picture. But basically so that people, when you're organizing an event or looking for subject matter experts, or maybe looking for advisors on your startup, you can just grab this and go, okay, here's who I can reach out to. And then, of course, so that there's more equal representation in this field, that as everything is so nascent. And of course, it's a working edition. So this would be edition 1, and we'd keep it open for edition 2. So it's not like it's only these 100 people and then there will never be more. We figure it will be constantly updated. We'll keep one Google Doc, basically open so that people can add to it. Not necessarily a wiki, but so that it's accessible. So not gatekeeping at all. This isn't like me and the people who are helping on the project saying, okay, we bequeath this title to this person. That's not at all. It's let's be inclusive. Let's let people come in. Let's give people a space for them to shine their light. And of course, it's women and binary, of course. So,
yeah, it sounds amazing because it's like you kind of like doing this project around also. We're writing history as we speak. The space haven't been here before, so it's like super cool. And yeah, I would love to have all kinds of women participate and share their stories and read that in the end. Because we've been part of this history moment of like this industry. Thank you so much, Paige, for sharing, and we're definitely supporting this project, and would love to see everyone check out the Gitcoin page and the other page.
In behalf of NEWFORUM, thank you so much to everyone that really joined to present their projects, and yeah, really, once again, thank you to everyone that joined, really. And of course, all the links will really be shared. In terms of Gitcoin, so as Madeline mentioned earlier, NEWFORUM is really a platform of exchange, pushing culture forward with regards to Web3, the liminal web, transmedia fashion, and with regards to talking to founders. We have interacted in the past a lot with Gitcoin, and also on other of our projects, we are working with Gitcoin or Gitcoin Passport. So this was an opportunity to work hand in hand with Gitcoin and really try to push the vision, like lots of other people in the space have done. So we're not the only ones. So I would not say that Gitcoin is sponsoring this event. I think it's more NEWFORUM trying to help push the vision of the incredible projects that are participating to this round. So thank you to everyone in here.